All right, everyone, we start off today with the second day of the Bidenomic bank crisis. We'll be doing plenty of analysis. My predictions from yesterday, if you go back and watch that video, oddly prescient now, weren't they? It's because the script is already written. You see the fucking writing on the wall. Everything that's happening right now is fairly predictable, other than if other banks begin to collapse. And as I pointed out the other end, and there was no further collapsing going on maybe the other day, which again I predicted was the case. You'll probably see a few more bank losses. Again, though, at this particular moment, the big problem is that the government is going to throw investors under the bus. So you've been invested in a bank as opposed to you're just a depositor there. You're fucked basically if you were working with these banks to collapse. That's not great for investors' confidence. Their investments do actually matter, just to be clear. That's not great. The blame game has begun, which means that they are expecting further problems. The Biden admin and all of these others would not be playing the blame game at all, and we'll get into the minutia there, unless this were going to go further. Barney Frank, yes, the Barney Frank. Look him up if you don't know who that is. I'm assuming that if you're a millennial, you probably do. If you're over 30, you know who Barney Frank is. Unless you are living under a goddamn rock. He came out. Of course, he was working with Signature Bank. And links in the description, by the way, to the bank losses and to the Barney Frank dust-up. They came in the FDIC and locked down his bank that he's working with, Signature Bank, and he's saying, well, we weren't insolvent. This is basically, we hold crypto, and so they're going after us. Wasn't that exactly what I pointed out the other day? When I looked at the three banks, I looked at it as like 3 murders happen in the same city in a 24-hour period. And they're all the same race, the same age, the same gender, the same socioeconomic status, and located in the same neighborhood. I do not assume that, therefore, those are random murders. The coincidence of those 3 murders happening under those circumstances in the same 24-hour period is less than that there's one central source that caused all of those murders. So when I look at Silvergate, which was heavily crypto, Signature, which, according to Barney Frank and others, isn't even insolvent, getting taken over the same way, again, heavily crypto invested. Crypto surging the other day, by the way. That's hilarious to me. Big things are afoot in financial markets right now. I'm glad that I do hold quite a bit of crypto, by the way. Should probably have it in local storage as opposed to on an exchange. I don't have mine on the exchange. It can be moved there and then traded for, cash or whatever, but you probably shouldn't keep it on Coinbase or something like that. And of course, SVB, they were invested in crypto and startups, tech startups. So this is an attack, in my opinion, a coordinated attack on tech. Now, it could be that the first two were semi-coincidental. It's just a result of, over-reliance on, tech investment and stuff like that. And of course, tech suffering one of its worst years ever since the dot-com bubble burst. By the way, we are sort of in a tech bubble bursting right now. It really is similar to the dot-com era. Some will survive and some will not. I'm betting on new tech to be among the survivors, which is exactly what they want to prevent from happening. That's why they're taking these initiatives here with the FDIC, with the Fed, etc. Fed saying, no, we're probably going to go ahead and raise rates some more, thus making a few more banks potentially insolvent. So investors right now, if I, and this is not financial advice, and I'm not invested in any bank. If I were an investor, though, if I had like $10 million in a mainline bank that I thought was potentially vulnerable, I'd have a reason to pull my investment out right now. I'd rather deal with the inflation on that just being a pile of cash in my bedroom than deal with the possibility of losing everything because Biden's completely economically illiterate. I think that part of this is an attack on crypto. They're dovetailing, therefore, the lesser losses of Signature Bank and their declaration that it's insolvent, and thus taking it over, effectively nationalizing a chunk of the banking sector in the process, specifically to fuck with cryptocurrency. That is what this mysteriously looks like to me. I said that yesterday. Barney Frank is a troubled character, but he does understand economics, enough to screw people over to the tune of billions of dollars, but getting past that, he's corroborating my opinion. Now, as for the blame game, because the banks the other day got hammered, and so even while they didn't necessarily collapse, they did lose double digits almost entirely across the board. At least the large and regional banks did. Local banks, on the credit unions and stuff like that, a little bit more isolated and insulated as far as that goes. As predicted, Joe Biden is peppering blame on the Fed. Well, they raised interest rates too quick and too fast. And notice, he did not want to take any goddamn questions after his mini presser the other day addressing the issue, where he basically told people with a straight face everything is fine. Yes, it's the biggest banking collapse since 2008, and we all remember what happened in 2008. The Great Recession began. Let's hope we don't end up with another housing bubble at the moment, because it'd be worse than 2008 if that does occur. With a straight face, he lied flat out to the American people and said the situation is normal. But if it's not normal, it's the Fed's fault. And Donald Trump's fault. He is attempting to do, again, what I predicted, Orange Man bad. Orange Man is responsible for the banking failures because he deregulated these there banks. Suspenders snapping because, Biden is basically the inbred deliverance kid with his banjo. Monosyllabic, low functioning in the mental department, has been for a while now. As predicted, they're going to try to shift the blame to those two groups. That's what it boils down to. That's interesting because the deregulation that Donald Trump did engage in years ago, who's been in office for the last 2 years? Was it A, Donald Trump and his cohorts, or B, the Biden stewardship? Much like with the East Palestine rail disaster, they're gaslighting the entire population. You had 2 years to decide, hey, that deregulation that happened, we should probably reverse that. You could have brought it up. The same with the rail deregulations. Again, fact checkers have weighed in. Mainline goddamn fact checkers that love Joe Biden and would love to suck Pete Buttigieg off at the same time have admitted openly that the deregulations under Trump had nothing to do with the kind of trains that derailed in East Palestine, leading to a massive environmental catastrophe that has dropped out of the news cycle because of the banking collapse, you'll know. The same is true of the banking deregulations. Please, Joe, take questions next time, and when you're inevitably asked which particular regulations did Donald Trump strip back that would have prevented this from happening, which ones were those? And then, to follow up naturally, if it's so important, if it's so fucking important as the chief executive, why didn't you raise the issue? Why didn't you, you do have a bunch of rhino Republicans in the House and the Senate. I'm sure that you can hammer out some sort of re-regulatory deal. I'm sure that you can talk to the people at the Fed and the FDIC and all of these other economic groups. I'm sure you can get something going because Orange Man bad. Everything he did stunk to high hell and apparently is causing the nation to implode now 2 years fucking later under Joe Biden. Sort of like the excuse making for the Bidenflation that is responsible, by the way, for the Fed raising the interest rates. The same Fed that Joe Biden predictably, and a year ago laid the groundwork to do this, predictably is blaming for the current economic crisis. Well, it's Bidenflation. You're not going to be able with a straight face to tell me, well, 2 years later, the inflation peaked. Again, I've had debates with people over this basic premise. It's just a total illiteracy. You should probably just become a Keynesian because you sound like one. So again, my predictions the other day have already come true. In less than 24 hours, Trump is blamed. The Fed is blamed. That one I saw coming last goddamn year, and it'll continue. You've got an attack on crypto, and Barney Frank is goddamn weighing in on it. Barney Frank is fucking involved. This couldn't get juicier if you tried. This is a total mess. And again, when they're doing the blame game, they're looking at the banking sector, and they're seeing near universal double-digit drops. Sometimes we're talking over 50% in their value in a 24-hour period. Do you realize how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars was effectively just wiped out? Now, that's just the bubble bursting, I suppose. Biden saying, don't worry, just partner up. You'll have to find more investment partners in order to keep your banks afloat. By the way, if you do fail to find that and you go under, we're not going to protect the investors that are already there again. If I'm rich and I have an investment portfolio, am I withdrawing things right now? Well, when I look at the surge in crypto, which is obviously being used as a hedge by people, and in precious metals, I'd say that's exactly what the whales are doing right now. which again is completely predictable. They don't want to lose everything. Why would you want to keep your investment in a bank that's teetering on the brink right now when you think that Biden might come in? They bail the depositors out, the zombie bank continues, the FDIC does a bunch of restructuring, but you lose effectively everything. You know, some of those deposits aren't even going to be declared insured. The government's saying, don't worry, we'll step in and take care of it. Dude, HSBC just took over the Silicon Valley Bank's UK branch for one pound. They bought it for £1. Just to be clear about the direction we're headed in. These are not normal things going on. So we'll wait and see. I'm interested to see what happens over the rest of this week. I predict a few more regional banks fail. And at some point, if you do hit a tipping point, then you do end up with a complete collapse because you don't have the capability of absorbing all the loss. Investors will flee. You might see things be more tepid today. It's hard to tell. But the other predictions have come true. The blame game, it's spot on. Crypto is definitely a deliberate casualty of what's going on, especially with Signature Bank. And Barney Frank, for the first time, is telling the truth. He's bemused about the whole situation. Hey, they're coming here and doing this shit. We're not insolvent. They just hate us because we have a lot of Bitcoin. I wouldn't be surprised if that contagion goes a bit further. That's about all. Peace out.